that's who it is, Jenny. How are you?
Oh, well, I'm pretty good, Mr. Ritter, thank you. How are you?
I'm wherever you are, Jenny.
Ain't you home a bit early?
Yes, I thought I'd have to go out to Cincinnati for a week or two, but I didn't.
Well, Mrs. Ritter ain't expecting you, is she?
No, she isn't.
Well, I didn't think I remembered hearing her say nothing.
Where is she?
Well, she's upstairs. I'll go call her.
What are you doing around here, Jenny? House cleaning?
Oh, no, it's ready for the rehearsal tonight.
What kind of a rehearsal?
Well, it's a show that Mrs. Ritter was in. They did it the week after you went away, and they liked it so well that they're going to do it again tomorrow night.
Who liked it?
Sir?
I say, who liked it so well that they're doing it again?
Well, everybody liked it from what the paper said.
And what kind of a show is it?
Oh, I think it's a tragedy, from what I understand.
Have you seen it, Jenny?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't get to see it, but everybody connected with it says it was a great success.
How did Mrs. Ritter happen to get into it?
I think somebody died. That's what I understand.
I assume it was an extremity of some kind.
Fred Ritter? Don't tell me that's you down there.
No, I'm still out in Chicago.
Is it Jenny?
Yes, ma'am, I was just coming to call you.
I thought I heard his voice. I've been standing up here for the last 5 minutes saying to myself, who can that be that sounds so much like Fred? Why, Fred, darling, what are you doing here?
How's the old kid?
Well, I thought you wouldn't be back till the 1st.
Oh, well, that Cincinnati thing's been postponed till after Thanksgiving.
Well, why didn't you wire or something?
Oh, I was afraid of giving you a shock.
Jenny!
You're such a frail little flower.
Now stop that, Fred. I've really lost a lot since you've been away.
How can you tell?
Why, of course I can tell by my clothes. Jenny, would you bring me a glass of water, please?
No, you're not going to faint, are you?
No, I'm not.
Any mail for me here?
Not a single thing, Fred. I sent everything right on to Chicago as soon as I got here. There must be several letters there for you now.
I'll get them all right. So, how you been treating yourself since I've been gone?
Oh, all right, only I'm glad you're back.
Kiss me.
The house seemed awfully lonesome with you gone.
Kiss me.
Crazy thing. Did you have anything to eat, Fred?
Yes, I ate on the train. What's this? Jenny's been telling me something about a show you're in?
Oh, she told you?
Yes, I wondered what happened to the furniture when I came in.
Oh, well, we're having a rehearsal here tonight. We have it every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Of course, it's just to run over the lines because we've already given the show at the 14th at the Civic Club.
What kind of a show is it?
Oh, it's a one-act play. In one act, you know. And it was really quite marvelous. I had no idea.
How did you happen to get into it?
Well, wait till I tell you. Oh, thank you, Jenny. Jenny, will you go to the top of the stairs and see if I left the lights burning in my room?
Yes,
I think I did.
Oh, Mr. Ritter, you want me to take your suitcase upstairs?
Yes, you can take it up if you will, Jenny. Thank you. So.
Well, you know I wrote you about poor Jimmy Shepherd?
Yes, what was that? Had he been sick?
Oh, not a day, my dear. That's the reason it's all so dreadful. Of course, he always had more or less of a weak heart, but nothing to threaten anything of that kind. And 3 days before the performance, mind you. Couldn't have happened any other time. And poor Claire Shepherd played one of the leading parts.
Did he know she was to play one of the leading parts?
Who, Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Well, of course he did. She just finished telling him when he fell over. And my dear, poor clever Shepherd is a wreck. You want to write her a note, Fred, when you get time. And he never spoke, not a solitary word. But just as he was dying, he turned and gave her the funniest look. Oh, she says if she lives to be 1,000, she'll never forget the way he looked at her.
Had he ever seen her act?
I don't know whether he ever had or not. Oh, yes, he did too, for I saw him myself last Easter Monday night at Century Drawing Rooms. She had a part in the play there that night, too. You remember?
No, I wasn't there.
You weren't?
No.
Oh, I thought you were. Oh, Jenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you ask Mrs. Brock to make some of that drink that she made last time?
Yes, ma'am. I think she's already made it.
Well, would you go and see Jenny, please?
Yes, ma'am.
The folks liked it so much the last time. Jenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell her to put a little of that gin in it the way she did before?
Yes, ma'am, I will.
Jenny?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell her she'll find some of that gin in the little buffet in the big dining room.
I think she knows where it is.
Well, anyway, that's how I happened to get into it. Mrs. Pampanelli called me up.
Is she in it too?
Who, Mrs. Pampanelli?
Yes.
Oh, no, she doesn't take any part. She's just kind of in charge of everything.
Oh, that suits her better.
Well, kind of a directress, I suppose you'd call her. Tells us where to go on the stage, you know, so we don't run into each other. Really, Fred, you've no idea how easy it is to run into somebody on the stage. You have to know where you're going every time you move. Really, Fred, what are you laughing at?
Oh, I've just been thinking of a few of the things I've heard Mrs. Pampanelli called.
Well, she's tremendously clever at this stage business. I don't care what you say. You ought to hear her talk about it sometime. Now, the last rehearsal we had over at her house, she spoke on technique in acting is distinguished from method. And it was really quite interesting. You've no idea.
You say you've done this show before?
Oh, yes, at the Civic Club on the 14th. And my dear, the audience just loved it. And you'd be surprised, too, for it's a terrifically serious thing. In fact, it's too serious for the general public. That's the reason why some of the people who saw it said that if we should ever give it again, we should give a dance right after it. But that's an absolute impossibility, as Mrs. Pampanelli says, to give it at either the Civic Club or the Century Drawing Rooms, so that's why we're giving it at Hutchie-Cutchie.
Where?
Horticultural Hall at Broad and Spruce, you know.
Yes, I know, but what did you call it?
Hutchie-Cutchie. Mrs. Pampanelli always calls it that. I suppose I've gotten into the habit from hearing her.
Well, what's this show for? A charity of some kind?
Well, it's a benefit for the Seamen's Institute. Kind of a refuge for them while they're in port. So they won't be wandering around the streets and getting into bad company. Well, it was Mrs. Pampanelli's idea, so she didn't want anything to happen. So she called me up first thing in the morning and she said to me, "Paula, darling, have you heard the news?" Well, no, I said, because up to that time I hadn't, and I certainly wasn't going to say that I had.
Oh, certainly not.
She said, "Poor Jimmy Shepherd has just passed on." Well, luckily I was sitting down at the time where I positively think I should have passed on myself.
Oh, don't say such things.
Really, Fred, you've no idea the feeling that came over me when she said that. "Betty," I said, "what on earth are we going to do?" But the tickets had already been sold. "Paula," she said, "the only thing that I can see to do is for you to step right into Clara Shepherd's part." "Me?" I said. "Yes," she said, "for you are the only person qualified, in my opinion, to play that part." "But," I said, "I've never in my life stepped on the stage." "That," she said, "is absolutely inconsequential, because it is entirely a matter of dramatic instinct. And you have that, to an even far greater degree than you've any idea of." Really, Fred, everyone said it was a positive tragedy. You couldn't have been there to see me. I never forgot myself once.
So, what are you going to do now? Become an actress?
No, but it surprised me so the way everybody enthused, because I didn't think I'd done anything so extraordinarily. I simply walked on the stage and said what I'd been told to say and walked off again. But yet everybody seemed to think it was so wonderful. And Nellie Fell said she'd never seen even a professional actress so absolutely unconscious. And the other people said that if they wouldn't have known, they never in the world would have believed it was my first offense.
You mustn't. You mustn't believe everything these women tell you.
But it wasn't only the people that I knew that said it. People that I didn't even know said it. Why, Mrs. Pampanelli had a letter from a woman away out at Glenside, and she said that at times my repose was positively uncanny. And the papers simply rave, especially the Evening Breeze. Well, I have it upstairs. I must show it to you sometime. They said they didn't see how I could have escaped the public eye for so long. Oh, really, Fred, I'm terribly sorry you couldn't have been there. I was going to write you about it as soon as Mrs. Pampanelli spoke to me about going on, but there was so little time, you see, and I didn't think you'd mind, on account of its being for charity. You don't mind my going on, do you, Fred?
No, not if you can get away with it.
I didn't think you would. Oh, that must be some of the people now.
Where do you do this thing? Here?
Oh, right here, just the way we have it fixed. Jenny, that must be some of the people.
Yes, ma'am.
I think I'll beat it upstairs.
Would you please
I
take it rehearsal?
I think I'd rather wait and see the show.
It's really quite interesting.
Well, I dare say you will be opening the door quite enough tonight without my bothering you.
Really,
punctuality. Good evening, Mr. Ritter. I'm glad to see you.
How do you do?
Good evening, Betty.
Oh, Paula, child, how are you, my dear?
Just fine.
Mr. Spindler. Yes, just put those things down right there.
Certainly, certainly.
Good evening, Mr.
Oh,
Spindler.
Good evening, good evening.
Ritter told me that you were
If you
back in
please.
town. She said she saw you getting into a taxi cab at the station. I'm so glad to see you.
Yes, I just got in.
Well, I suppose you've heard of the big event.
Yes, Paul has just been telling me.
Well, my dear, you may count the day lost that you missed Nancy Paula. Of course, you will still have an opportunity to see it. That is, if you are not going to run away again before tomorrow evening.
No, I'll be here now till after Thanksgiving.
Oh, wonderful. Did you hear that, Paula?
What is it, dear?
Mr. Ritter is going to be here for the performance tomorrow night.
Yes.
Oh, and now you will have the opportunity of revealing to him the gems of talent, the unfathomed caves of matrimony there. Oh, by the way, Paula, I read the most remarkable article.
Yes.
I think it's in that little gray book, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's it. Mr. Spindler called it to my attention, and it is really a very remarkable article. It has so many of my own ideas in it, things that I have advocated for years. And I brought it just for you, dear. So you must read it when you get a chance to. What is that line of Emerson that I am so fond of? Something about our unexpressed thoughts coming forth to accuse us. Well, you know all those things, Mr. Spindler.
Coming back to us with an alienated majesty.
Yes, that's the one. And you know that's exactly what occurred to me when I read the article. All of my thoughts came back to me from an alienated majesty. Oh, I beg your pardon. I don't think I introduced you. Mr. Spindler, this is Mrs. Ritter's husband.
Glad.
How are you?
Mr. Spindler is a young man who has done an exhausting study of little theater movement across the country, and he's planning to bring something of the sort right here. And he is going to succeed, aren't you, Mr. Spindler?
Never fell down on a big job yet.
But I am sure you will. You have all of the qualifications.
Thank you, thank you.
Doesn't he, Paula?
Yes, indeed. Mr. Spindler's quite indispensable.
You know, I think that's what I shall call him from now on. The indispensable Mr. Spindler.
Bouquets were falling, thick and fast.
You know, I don't know.
I'll get that.
What in the
Oh, that's
world
very
I
kind of you,
do
Mr.
without
Spindler.
him. He's one of those rare persons who never forsakes you in the hour of quotation. Oh, dear. Paula, dear, what are you eating?
A bit of chocolate. Would you like some?
Oh, no, thank you.
Well, there's plenty here.
No, I never eat anything before I use my voice. And you shouldn't either, dear. Particularly candy.
There's a lot here.
Wasn't that just
That's all right.
dreadful about
Mr. Spindler's
poor
already
Shepherd?
answered
Yes,
your
it
question.
was too bad.
All right. You know, I don't know when I have ever been quite so upset. I don't think I closed my eyes all night wondering who in the world I was going to get to replace his wife. You see, Clara Shepherd was playing the role that Paul was playing.
Yes, so she told me.
Well, we only had 3 days, and I just couldn't think that anyone could learn all those lines in such a short time. Well, at first I was going to have Clara Shepherd go on, and then I'd go out and make some sort of an announcement. But the funeral was on the 14th, and that was opening night. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought perhaps that was just asking a bit too much of her, considering her ability as an actress, of course.
Couldn't she have kept his death a secret until after the performance?
Well, I thought of that too, but it had only been 3 days. Oh, it's so well known.
Well, Paula, that's a very dangerous young man you have on the door tonight.
Yes, indeed. It's very kind of Mr. Spindler.
Hi. My dear, I haven't heard anything like it since I was 20. Hello, Betty. How are you, John?
Hello,
Really?
Kelly.
Such a sweet child. Yes, and I would have been here every night at this hour if it weren't for that dreadful officer up at the Parkway. Well, he seems to take a fiendish delight in selecting my car of all the millions that pass there at this hour to do this. So I told him, now see here, young man, you needn't expect a Christmas gift from me next Christmas because you just won't get it. Not until you change your tactics, that is. So I says after this, he's going to just let me run into a trolley car and see how I like that. Well, I said, it'll be a change anyway. A big stop all the time. I don't think he likes my chauffeur. Well, I don't blame him. I don't like him myself. He drives too slow. He's like an old woman. For mercy's sakes, Frederick, you don't mean to tell me that's you.
I was here a minute ago.
Well, I declare, I don't know what's happening to my eyes. I saw him standing there, but I thought it was one of the other young gentlemen. How are you, dear boys? Frederick, Ritter, stop it. Paula, you see what this bad boy of yours is doing? What brought you back so soon?
I got thinking of you.
Oh, well, I thought you were in Seattle or South Carolina. One of those funny places.
I couldn't keep away from you any longer.
Oh, don't play with fire, Frederick. You know what they say about me. And I've been all kinds. Oh, Professor Campanelli. I call her Professor. She knows so much. Mrs. P.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Ellie. I didn't know you were speaking to me.
I wanted to know if you could bring me home in your car tonight.
Why, certainly, dear.
Well, my chauffeur has been deviling me about some boxing bee wrestling match, something or other that he wants to see, and I told him that he could go along if there was someone here who could take me home.
Well, I can, of course.
Well, then, all right, I can go chase him, and I won't hear any more about that. Mr. Spindler,
Yes, ma'am.
would you mind doing a favor for a very old lady?
You know what I told you out at the door.
Frederick, you have a rival on the premises.
Oh.
Mr. Spindler told me at the door that my will was his pleasure.
San Juan is never dead while Mr. Spindler lives.
Say, that's pretty good.
Oh, well, I was afraid that he was something of a gay deceiver.
Only one way to find out.
You naughty boy. Well, I will tell you what you may do for me, if you will. Go out to my car. Oh, you'll probably find my chauffeur asleep in it. Tell him that I said it was all right, that Mrs. Pampanelli will take me home. He could go along.
Righto.
Oh, like a good boy. Well, now, Paula, I want to know why you didn't tell me that my lover was coming back tonight.
I didn't know myself until 20 minutes ago.
You don't mean to tell me that he came home unexpectedly?
He never even sent a wire.
Frederick Ritter, I am surprised at you. I consider that the supreme indiscretion in a husband, to return unexpectedly. Listen, Paul,
I never got such a surprise in all my life.
it has probably wrecked more perfectly good homes than any other one thing in the calendar.
Oh, Nellie, I love your cake.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, it's beautiful.
But let me see it now, dear. Oh, it is charming, my dear.
Oh, I'm so glad you like it. I was afraid at first, oh, perhaps it might make me look a little too much like a debutante.
Oh, it's just
Don't
charming.
be peevish, Frederick.
Isn't he terrible?
I can't help it because your wife is a great actress.
Now you stop that, Fred Ritter.
Well, perhaps Mr. Ritter will change his tune after tomorrow night's performance.
Well, I suppose it must be very difficult for the marvelous male to suddenly find himself obliged to bask in the reflected glory of a mere wife. Oh, for I've never known one yet who could do so gracefully.
I was just thinking about what happened to poor Jimmy Shepherd.
Well, perhaps Mr. Ritter will show himself to be consistently masculine in this case and do the exceptional thing.
I suppose that is what you would call veiled sarcasm, isn't it?
I don't think it was veiled at all. Well, I shouldn't say it was even draped.
Here's your manuscript, Nellie.
Oh, yes, dear.
So, what are you going to do now? Keep on giving this show?
Well, not this particular one, but of course we will continue giving shows.
What's the idea?
Well, they're to be for different charities.
Then afford the boys and girls an opportunity to improve themselves as artists.
What are they all going to do? All go on the stage?
Well, of course, they won't all go on the stage, but the ones that we feel have sufficient talent, we will, of course, encourage.
Do you feel that Mrs. Ritter has sufficient talent?
Oh, she's wonderful, Fred, really.
I feel that Mrs. Ritter has a remarkable talent.
So what are you going to do about her?
Well, now, what do you mean by that, Mr. Ritter? What are we going to do about her?
Well, you're certainly not going to encourage her to go on the stage, are you?
And why not?
Well, what about her home? You couldn't expect her to just walk away and leave that, could you?
Well, personally, I feel when it's a question of talent, one cannot allow himself to be deterred by purely personal considerations.
Oh, she's really awfully good, Fred. You wait till you see. You'll want her to go yourself.
Well, she'll have to be pretty good.
Well, won't he, Betty?
Well, as far as that is concerned, I feel that when the question is whether to be or not to be an actress, is one that every woman at some time during her life must decide for herself. Nellie, dear, would you come here a moment, please?
Yes, dear. Wait just a moment, please, Betty. Did you tell him, Mr. Spindler?
Yes, ma'am. He's gone on his way, rejoicing.
Oh, that's a sweet boy. The only man I've met in a long time that has made me wish I were 10 years younger. Oh, outside of you, of course.
Nellie, dear, please.
Yes.
It's this line right here. The author has employed a defective verb in the present tense. Mr. Spindler, would you come here?
Certainly, certainly.
If you please. We discussed this last evening, you
Yes,
remember?
yes.
The author has employed a defective in the perfect tense.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mhm, so I changed it.
A very good change.
Yes, I thought so. Nellie, you'll just have to watch for that.
Yes, I'll watch for it.
But this is Paula's line. I should tell her about it. Paula, would you come here a moment? dear?
Yes, dear.
You in the show too, Nellie?
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I play a chicken.
In the last act, I suppose.
No, and not in the last stages either.
Mrs. Fell is the official promptress.
I prompt everybody.
Oh.
Well as lending my moral support.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody.
Well, good evening, Mr. Hosseycross.
Mr. Hosseycross.
My dear Mrs. Ritter, how do you do?
I do hope the rest of the people are not too far behind you.
Well, are we late?
Hello, Ashley.
Hello, Nellie, my dear. How are you?
Nellie, here is your manuscript.
Yes, dear, wait just a moment. Oh, Teddy Spirit.
Hello, Nellie.
Come here a minute, dear. I have something to tell you.
Could you spare one of those cigars, please?
Yes. Do you smoke?
Semi-occasionally, yes.
You can light either end of it.
Yes. I was just looking at the label. It's rather keen.
Have you got a match?
Oh, I don't.
Oh, Nellie.
Upon my word, dear. Now wait till I tell
I don't
you.
care to smoke just now. Thank you.
You've been in the Army, haven't you?
Yes, I put in the better part of 3 months down at Upton in the personnel.
I imagine from your salutes that you'd been around one of the camps.
I was 3rd lieutenant down there, regimental sergeant major.
Well, so I'm going to ask him right up the next time I see him.
Mr. Ritter, how do you do, sir?
Well, I'll ask him. I'll
Decided
find
there was
out
no
whether
place
he
like
does or
home.
not.
Are you in the show too?
Well, I should say.
Yes,
he
we're all
is
in
it. Well, he has one of the leading roles.
Now,
Well, unfortunately, there isn't a place in that play where he could use, that perfectly gorgeous singing voice of his. No, it's true, Huxley.
Mr. Spindler, how are you this evening, sir?
Good evening.
Oh, I beg your
That's
pardon.
okay. It isn't lit.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
don't mention it.
How do you do, Mr. Ritter?
How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Teddy.
Yes?
Did
Oh,
you
hello,
call that
Flora.
man?
Am I the last?
Yes, I did, Miss.
What are you doing, Nellie?
Oh, we're making some changes
Thank you
here.
very much.
And then,
Well, good evening, Florence.
Am I the last?
Well, aren't you usually? How are you, my dear?
Rushed like mad. Hello, everybody. Hello, Nellie.
Hello,
Bossy.
dear.
How do you do, Mr. Spindler?
How do you do?
No, I don't talk to you at all.
Why, what's the matter?
Paul, did you know your husband is becoming very snooty?
Fred, why didn't you speak to Florence at the train station today?
I didn't see you today.
Well, you must be getting very old, for Irene Coulter and I did everything but stand on our heads to attract your attention.
Pretty picture.
Hello, Teddy. What are you doing way back here in the corner?
Is there anything the matter, Betty?
Oh, I'm just checking a little business here.
Well, I don't think that there is anything we could do.
Anything I can help you with, Mrs. P?
No, it's purely technical.
Betty, did I tell you that I saw Clara Shepherd today?
Oh, where did you see her, Nellie?
Darlington's at the morning counter.
Will she be going in black?
My dear, she is in it already.
Very foolish of her under the circumstances.
Well, that's what I told her today. I said, don't be spectacular, dear. Well, it'll only make it more difficult for you when you want to marry again. And I said, well, you will want to marry again.
Well, I'm sure she will.
So I said, just get through these next few months as undramatically as possible. Well, I know he was your first husband and all that, but after all, my dear, he was only your husband. Well, it isn't as though you had lost someone who was close to you. Like one of your own kind, I mean, your own people. And so I said another thing, darling. Always remember, he would very soon put another in your place if it had been you.
I know he would.
And I felt like saying that I could name a few people, give the names and addresses right now, several, who he would have put in your place long ago, only for the law.
Well, she must have known it.
Oh, of course she knew it.
Well, how is she, dear?
My dear, she is a perfect wreck.
Oh, poor soul.
Oh, she says that no one will ever know how she feels about losing that part. And she says that she cannot wait until tomorrow night to see Paula's interpretation of it. Well, she's heard so much about it.
Oh, but then she is planning to come to the performance.
She says she'll be there if she has to disguise herself.
Doesn't that just sound like her?
Oh, yes, she has such dramatic instincts.
He never appreciated it, though.
My dear, has any artist ever been adequately appreciated?
I understand he was very heavily insured.
Oh, yes.
Well, she seemed so optimistic when I talked to her the other day.
I believe your husband's company had him insured for quite a bit, didn't they, Paula?
I think so, but I couldn't say for quite how much.
I must find that out. Frederick Ritter, I want to ask you something. What did you think when you heard Jimmy Shepherd was dead?
Well, I thought he was dead, of course.
Oh, dear, you smarties. No, listen, Frederick. He left quite a bit of insurance, didn't he?
About 300,000, I believe.
Was there a will, do you know?
I don't know. I imagine there was.
Well, I hope she was sharp enough to see that there was. Because if there isn't, she's only entitled to 1/3. Well, that's all the widow is entitled to in this state. And you know, Frederick, Clara Shepherd could never in this world get along on a bare $100,000. You know that as well as I do.
Well, she has quite a bit of money of her own, hasn't she?
Oh, tons of it, yes. But there's no sense in using her own if she could use his. Was sudden, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, we were terribly inconvenienced. I had simply deluged my friends with tickets.
I can't understand why you didn't postpone the show.
That's what I wanted to do. But Mrs. P here was superstitious about a postponement.
What is that you are saying about Mrs. P, Nellie Val?
Why, Frederick wanted to know why we didn't postpone the show when Jimmy Shepherd died. And I told him that you were superstitious about a postponement.
No, I was not superstitious. So please don't say that, dear. I wouldn't want that impression to get abroad.
Well, you were something, Betty.
Yes, you're quite right, dear. I was something, but I was not superstitious. I was intuitive. You see, I have struggled for so long to inaugurate a little theater movement in this community that I have intuitively anticipated the occurrence of some obstacle to thwart me. So when the telephone rang that night about Mr. Shepherd's death, I said to myself, even before I picked up the receiver, this is your event, and something has happened that's going to put your sincerity in this movement to the test. And I must remember the words of Abraham Lincoln at Gettysburg. It is better that we should perish than that those ideals for which we struggle should perish.
It's a singular thing, but I've noticed that invariably there is a fatality connected with these amateur performances.
Unfortunately, Mr. Ritter, you are right, and I agree with you. But we are not dismayed. We have the lessons of history to fortify us. So when the torch of the sensual culture has been raised, there is unfailingly a concomitant exactment of a human life. Well, it's 8:30, boys and girls. Time to go on to the bridge once more. Here you are, dear.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Oh, Mr. Spindler, do you have my other pencil?
Oh, it's right here, ma'am.
And now I have an announcement, boys and girls. I'm sure you've all noticed that Mr. Twiller is not with us this evening. He telephoned and said he would be unable to come, but he promised me he will be there for the performance tomorrow night. Now, you all understand that the setting will be the same as it was at the Civic Club on the 14th. However, the stage is considerably larger at Hutchicutch. But this should not cause any problem for us at all, because all of the entrances and exits will be relatively the same.
You have my
Thank
props
you,
on.
Mr. Spindler.
I beg your
Oh,
pardon, Ellie. I
Mr.
was
Ritter.
just looking at something here.
Are you going to stay for the performance?
Well, if I wouldn't be in the way.
Oh, not at all. We'd be glad to have you.
He can sit over here with the prompters.
Oh, I tell you,
You can behave yourself.
We're going to do the last scene first for Mr. Hossy Frost's lines.
Oh, all right.
Oh, stop that, Frederick.
Behave yourself, Fred.
Now, folks, now, Mr. Spindler is going to handle all the various cues tonight and tomorrow night at the performance. Now, he will do all of the rapping. Very good. And he has his own telephone bell. Did you bring it with you? Very good. Now, I would like to start with the last scene first. The one between Mr. Hossy Frost and Miss McCricket. I have just a few corrections. I think it's on page 18 or 19, Nellie. Oh, and one more thing, boys and girls. Before I forget it, I want to tell you, I want you to be very careful on your entrances and your exits. Now, you have to watch out for those little pieces of wood that they put under the doors. And don't trip. No, Paula.
On page 18, did you say it was, Betty?
Yes, dear. Now, I imagine they will have the same thing at Hutchicutchee. And now, I have found that there is nothing more disconcerting than to trip as you are coming onto the stage. Now, going off, it's not so bad. But coming on, I have found that it takes a tremendous artist to rise above it. So watch it, all of you. Now, is everybody ready? Now, remember, boys and girls, use your voices, and let's do it just like we're going to do tomorrow night. Dr. Arlington is in his office.
Yes.
And Mr. Rush has just made his exit. And Mrs. Arlington is putting on the dead latch. Are you ready?
Dead lunch.
Click, click.
You can come out now, Clyde. They're gone.
Is anybody here, David?
Hold it. Somebody's out there right here.
Aren't you gonna take the last seat first?
Last scene first. That was the first scene. I thought you would have
What do you think like this stuff tomorrow night?
I want to do the scene between you and Miss McCracken. Boys and girls, please! We will have one director each, please. Now, let's not everybody talk at once. It's confusing and it wastes too much time. Now, I would like to take the last scene first. The one between Mr. Hossy Frost and Miss McCricket. It is the scene at the finish, just before Paula comes in and right after Mr. Rush's exit.
Well, I beg your pardon. I just thought that we were beginning right from the beginning.
I would like to take the last scene first, if you don't mind, Mr. Hossy Frost. I have a few corrections to make.
This was the wrong entrance for that line anyway.
And you won't need your hat and your cane for this scene.
That's true. Now, bear with me. I'll get straightened out after a while.
Florence, dear, would you mind going back?
Certainly.
And let's just take it from Mr. Rush's exit.
Ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Dead latch.
Click, click.
Go on.
You can come out now, Clyde. They've gone.
Did you come here to make a scene?
Have I made one?
What are you doing here? Shh. I want an explanation of this.
So do I.
No, Florence. Florence, we have to give it a little more lift.
Don't you think she'd cry there?
Would you like to cry there?
No, but I can if you want me to.
Well, personally, I feel that she is speaking more in anger than in sorrow. You see, Florence, you are playing a wrong wife. Now, I know, Florence, dear, that you are an unmarried child, and perhaps you find it hard to realize how annoyed a wife can become with her husband. But I really think we should do it with more of a lift, more of this.
So do I.
And come on.
Okay. What is your reason for sneaking into my office at this hour?
Is it necessary that your wife have a reason for coming into your office?
You wanted to embarrass Mrs. Rush. That was it, wasn't it?
I wanted to be my rival.
You could have met Mrs. Rush under more candid circumstances.
The present one suited my purposes better.
Naturally. You wanted a scene.
I think.
Florence, dear. Florence, dear. Tempo.
I
I beg your pardon.
I think
Your pardon.
if I were a scenic woman, I would have had ample opportunity during the last 15 minutes to indulge myself.
You did, I think. I had the pleasure of hearing you.
Was it a pleasure, Clyde?
It appears to amuse you.
I have an inopportune sense of humor.
You should be able to appreciate the situation. You created it.
I didn't create a husband.
I'm afraid I'm stuck. Now, now don't tell me. I guess I'm wrong.
Nellie, what was that last line? Stop
Oh, I'm sorry. Is somebody stuck?
Mr. Hossy Frost.
Oh, well, wait a minute till I see where I'm at. Here it is. I didn't create her husband.
No,
It's the next one.
Oh, we passed that, huh? Oh, okay, it is, oh, you've all been listening to a lot of damn cheap gossip.
That certainly is my Jonah line.
That's right. You've all
been listening to a lot of damn cheap gossip.
which should show you that people are talking.
One or two old women, perhaps.
Will it confine itself to those?
Well, I can't control that.
Have you tried?
No!
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Nor do I intend to. People will always talk. It may as well be at my expense as anybody else's.
Anybody's else, please.
I beg your pardon?
anybody's else, it sounds better.
Oh, well, certainly. It may as well be at my expenses. Anybody else's?
Never mind, Mr. Hotsyfrost. It'll come.
Your position can't afford it.
I've given them nothing to talk about.
No!
What?
Please, Clyde! You're not talking to your office boy. Let us get to the point.
Excuse me, Fleur. Excuse me, Mr. Hotsyfrost.
Quite all right.
Well, she has a name.
I have an interest to get my umbrella.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm not talking to your office boy.
Very well. What brought you here tonight?
Not to quarrel with you, for one thing.
You wanted to embarrass Mrs. Rush. That was it, wasn't it?
Not at all. You misunderstood me. I said I wanted to meet Mrs. Rush.
And what did you want to meet her for?
Why, I thought we three might reason together concerning our respective futures.
I forgot my cigarettes.
Oh, that's all right, Mr. Hotsyfrost. I just want lines. Go on, Florence, there.
I've deferred this discussion for some time, but it may as well be today as tomorrow.
Your plan didn't work out very well, did it?
Oh, yes, very well indeed, although hardly as I had anticipated, thanks to her husband and your lies. You've evidently told this boy here that Mrs. Rush is your wife.
I told him nothing of the kind.
And you've allowed him to think so.
That's business.
Perhaps it is, but it at least has allowed you to be present at the passing of Mrs. Rush.
You are deliberately misinterpreting this situation. Yes, you are.
Why, it's perfectly ridiculous to think that a physician cannot take a woman patient without being subjected to the whisperings of a lot of vulgar scandalmongers.
This is not a romantic age, Clyde.
Mrs. Rush is a patient of mine.
She may have been originally.
She is
I'm not disputing the fact, but she must have a very persistent malady that hasn't responded to a treatment of more than 6
Flossie,
years.
wait a moment. Oh, I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I thought she'd omitted a line. I beg your pardon.
Go on, Florence, dear.
Not to speak of the innumerable changes of air that she's enjoyed at your expense and under your personal escort. I have the day and the date of the majority of them. So you see, your chivalry is a bit trying under the circumstances.
Betty.
But I haven't come here to reproach you, nor to plead for your return. Not at all. I think you love this woman.
Betty.
And in that case, I want to offer you your freedom.
Now, careful, children. 1, 2, 3.
Well, I don't want it.
What?
And I see absolutely no occasion for any such talk.
You're probably more broad-minded than I am. Really, I don't think your freedom is a very good thing for you. You have a form of respectability that requires a certain anchorage in the conventions. But unless you can reconcile yourself in the future to a more literal observance of those conventions, I shall be advised to insist that you take your freedom.
Mr. Hotsyfrost, look at her. Look at her, Mr.
Yes.
Betty.
I've deferred this discussion for some time, but it may as well be today. I have a couple of brothers who are beginning to ask me, which I find too difficult to answer, and I will neither lie to them nor allow them to pity me.
Well, what do you want me to do?
No, Florence, just a moment, please. I would like for you to, if you can, to give me just a little bit more out of that last line. And now, within the limits of characterization, of course. But if you feel it, I would like for you to give me just the barest suggestion of a tear. And not too much, but just enough to show that underneath her courage and her anger, that she is a woman and a mother. You understand that, dear?
More emotion.
Yes. Now, in that last line, you are doing splendidly, both of you.
Thank you.
I have always felt that the last line is the high point of the play, for it is there where you are making your big plea for your voice and your home, for every woman's home. And even though you're making it in anger, I feel I can hear her saying, except vocally, of course, my God, don't make me have to do this thing. And do you understand, dear?
I think I do. Do you want me to go back?
And no, let's just take it from Mr. Hossifross's line. What do you want me to do?
What do you want me to do?
I've already told you.
Then I suppose that I'm simply to decline all women patients in the future. or else submit them to you for your general approval.
Stick to your guns, Clyde.
That's the only thing that I see to do.
Your tenacity is commendable, but it's a lost cause. I appreciate your embarrassment.
I'm not embarrassed.
Desolation, then.
Mr. Hossifross,
Yeah?
more nonchalance in that walk. More savoir-faire, as they say in French.
But I shall be magnanimous, having loved and lost myself, so that you see, it may really it's difficult as you imagine.
Well, I can't say that I relish the prospect with any such misunderstanding as this between us.
It's the portion of half the world, Clyde.
It certainly isn't a very inviting one.
But it has its compensations. You'll have your memories, and I shall have the wisdom of disillusionment. As well as
is
the
that my cue?
consciousness of lots
Well,
of women.
telephone is my cue, isn't it?
For there are a million women exactly like me.
Oh,
Secondary women.
I beg your pardon.
So you
I heard
see,
the telephone. I thought it
you
was
haven't
my
lost
cue.
anything
That
but a
was
lot of
your
time.
telephone.
Oh,
And that's
I'm sorry.
always lost
I thought it
when
was
it's
my
spent
cue.
on things that are insusceptible of conclusion.
Oh, Rick.
Just a minute. Just a minute. No. I've lost her. No.
Mr. Ritter.
I've lost her.
It was inevitable in your case, Clyde. You have a very conventional soul.
I've lost you.
That was incidental, eh?
Mr. Ritter.
But it seems that there must be some other way.
There is, my dear boy, for lots of people, but not for you.
Yes?
You're too respectable.
Well, let me talk to you upstairs.
Physically, I mean. And Mrs. Rush has what appears to me to be a rather primitive husband, and you have a very modern wife. So be wise, Clyde. You know what usually happens to him who loves danger. Go into your office. I'll talk to this woman.
Hello, kid.
Hello, Mrs. Arlington.
Is my sweetie in?
No, ma'am, he ain't.
What?
He went about 6 o'clock.
Why, I had an appointment with him.
He might be back, maybe.
Well, I can't wait if I'm not for certain he's coming back.
He was expecting you.
I know he was. I suppose I'd better leave a note for him.
You'll find that green one is the best pen.
Thanks. Ha, ha, ha.
Oh my God!
I'll call Dr. Woodford right away.
Now, dear, just go on with your line.
Well, is he dead, Betty?
No, never mind. Let's just take it from where Mr. Bishop down the stairs.
Lansdowne 8, please, right away.
Betty.
Well,
Betty, you're gonna faint.
I know he was. I suppose I'd better leave a note for him.
Did I hit you, Mr. Hopkins? I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right.
Girl, the setting was splendid. Oh, Mr. Spindler.
I don't want to see it until I go on.
Manager.
Keep away from that door, Mr.
Yeah.
Hossie.
Yes.
Are you ready?
No, I don't think
Yeah,
this
sure, I'm all ready. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Stage Manager, will you come here, please? Mr. Stage Manager, this young man will stand right here and give you the cue for the curtain in case I'm not around.
All right.
And Mr. Spindler, I want you to stand right there.
All right.
Well, is everybody all right?
Yes. I think so.
And how are you, Paula?
Oh, yes, I'm all right.
Fine. Where is Mr. Hossifrost?
He just stepped out on stage.
Where
He was
are
here a
you,
minute
Mr.
ago.
Hossifrost?
Mr. Hossifrost!
There he is.
Mrs. Stefanelli wants you. Oh, here he is, Mrs. Stefanelli. We can stay here, Mrs. Stefanelli. There he is.
Are you all right?
Well, yes, I think so.
And how is your makeup?
Fine, I think.
Well, come over here under the light until I can see it. Oh, yes, very good.
Now, there's not too much red.
No, I shouldn't say so.
Up here, I mean.
I know, the contour of your face requires it. It just heightens your expression. Very good. Now, Mr. Twiller.
Oh, sir, please, sir.
Mr. Twiller, how is your mustache?
All right, I think.
Is it quite secure?
I think so.
Made it a little smaller, haven't you?
Yes, I cut it down a little bit on this side.
I thought you had.
I was getting conscious of it.
Well, I don't know what is better for your characterization.
How are my eyes?
Oh, very effective. Oh, dear. And now, is everybody ready? Mr. Hossifrost, you have your gloves, you came.
And mine.
Nellie, it's
Yes, yes.
Mr. Spindler.
All right.
Teddy, are you all right?
All right.
And both you girls, are you all right?
All right.
All right. All right. Take off the curtain.
All right, Mr. Stage Manager. Take it up. Ready?
We're ready.
Let her go.
Take off the curtain. Oh, wait a minute.
Wait,
Just a minute.
Stop,
Let's
please.
take off the curtain.
Something wrong.
Oh, that's poor.
Is it all right?
All right.
All right, Stage Manager. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Let her go.
Take
it
off
up.
the curtain. Mr. Hossifrost. Go, Mr. Hossifrost.
Yes.
Go on.
Is it up?
Yes, go on.
Is anybody here, David?
No,
sir. No telephones?
No, sir.
Nothing at all, huh?
Mr. Hossifrost, keep the door open.
No, sir.
All right, sir.
Mr. Hossifrost,
And I think
there's
that
both
will do very
again.
nicely for this day. It won't stay open.
Nellie, would you go over there and hold the door?
That's telephone.
What? Had you been given? I didn't hear it.
Mrs. A? Yes? All right. You can clear out of here now, David, anytime you like. Mrs. Arlington is on her way up.
All right.
I'll let you off early on Monday.
Oh, that's all right.
And don't forget to leave that list with the Robinson people on your way down on Monday.
I won't. I have it right here in my pocket.
Is that someone coming?
I think so.
There's too much wood in it.
That can't be Mrs. Arlington already. I won't see anyone else. Tell them I'm gone and don't let anyone wait. Say that you're just locking up the office.
Nellie! Nellie, let go of the door.
Good evening, son.
Good evening.
Isn't the doctor in?
No, ma'am, he ain't. He went about 6 o'clock.
That's unfortunate. I wanted to see him.
How are you?
Well, I'm all right, but that door and that telephone got me a little rattled for a minute.
Well, he always has to be waiting whenever he's expecting his wife downtown.
What's the matter, Huxley? Something go wrong here?
Well, that door got me a little rattled for a minute.
Oh, I don't think the audience noticed it.
Mrs. Spindler, for pity's sake, will you be quiet for a minute?
We better get this thing out of here before somebody gets hurt.
You take that out of there, you might weaken the scenery.
It isn't connected with the scenery.
Now, you don't know that it isn't.
Somebody's gonna get their neck broke the first thing you know.
Well, then that will be their misfortune. You'll just have to be careful. Get ready, Paula.
You all right, Mr. Spindler? What's the matter, Mr. Spindler?
Why, that thing is sticking right up in the middle of the floor.
Are you all right, Paula?
Oh, yes, I'm all right.
Don't be nervous, dear.
Oh, I'm not the least bit, dear.
You're splendid. Now, I'll open the door for you.
Oh, thank you.
Do you mind if I wait for a few minutes in case he comes?
Why, I was just going home.
Oh, will you?
Yes, and I have to lock up the office before I go.
Here it is.
Oh,
There.
Thank you.
Hello, kid.
Hello, Mrs. Arlington.
Is my sweetie in?
No, ma'am, he ain't.
What?
Hetty, did Paula trip?
I don't know how anyone can get on that stage without tripping.
Well, I don't either.
Well, I just don't understand how anybody can go through that door, especially a woman, without catching her heel or her skirt or something.
It is dreadful.
Well, I just don't understand the necessity of it at all.
Oh, I don't either.
Oh, dear. I'm afraid you're not hearing Paula at all.
Well, why don't you speak to her, Betty? She's sitting right there.
Oh. Paula, dear. Speak louder. They're not hearing you.
Can't she hear you?
Paula, dear, speak louder.
There's no panic on the desk.
Oh,
no panic.
No panic.
What's wrong? What's wrong? Use the electric. What did they take?
You gotta let things alone, man. All right, never use them.
You're not doing a thing. You're just sitting there. Say something.
Don't bother us. Start making me.
Say something, Paula.
He's got it.
Why are you standing in the middle of the street? This is all your fault. We're supposed to attend to the property.
Oh, my.
I think he's up.
Teddy, what's the matter? Go get your hat. Oh, it's Teddy. He's up on his lines.
Huxley,
Teddy, go over and get your hat and cover on.
I think it is. Oh, dear. Oh, but this is just absolutely dreadful. Now, don't get me nervous, darling, or I'll never be able to find it.
Well, now, here's page 11, right here.
That's 11. Oh,
Yeah.
Here it is. It's I'll get you an envelope.
No, what's next?
The next one is, it takes me nearly an hour to get home.
It takes me nearly an hour to get home.
It takes me an hour to get home.
Is he all right now?
Yes, he's all right, but I want you to stay right here. I'm worried about Paul.
You know, I could have swore I put a penny on that desk.
Mr. Spindler, I am not interested in what you think. Now, will you just go away before you ruin the entire performance?
Good night.
Good night, son.
Good night, kid.
Teddy, you should never be a stage in the middle of the scene. You should talk, do something, anything else. I'm afraid I'm tired of you.
Here, take it, please. John, what's wrong with this boy?
Mrs. Spindler, help him.
Boy, out here.
I always said he wasn't strong enough for that part. Mr. Twiller! Oh, they're waiting. They're waiting for Mr. Twiller. Mr. Twiller. How are my eyes? Instead of paying attention to the part.
They rehearse their cues 1,000 times and they still don't know them when they hear them. It's ridiculous.
Now, what happened to Teddy? Did he get sick out there?
No, it's just a reaction. He put too much into the scene. He hasn't learned emotional conservation.
Aha.
She's waiting for my very unpunctual husband. In fact, we're both waiting for him to be precise. But I've just been telling her, I'm afraid we may as well give it up, for he's never kept an appointment in his life. I'm sorry he isn't here if you wanted to see him.
Yes, it is too bad. I had looked forward to seeing him.
I don't understand you.
I don't fully understand myself.
What's the audience laughing at?
Half of Mr. Twiller's mustache fell off. I don't think they noticed it. He stuck it right on again.
It doesn't matter. There's no excuse. He's been here since 4 o'clock.
What sort of rumor was it, Mr. Rush, if I may ask?
The usual kind.
Oh, what?
Oh, it fell off again. Yes, come on too, Betty.
Wouldn't you think he'd have brains enough to leave it off?
Well, his hat's on. Can you...
Mr. Twiller, leave your mustache off. Leave it off and take off your hat. You're inside.
What happened? Did his mustache fall off?
Twice, and he keeps sticking it back on.
It's perfectly ridiculous.
Too bad my husband isn't here.
Yes, it is. I had counted on seeing him.
I'm sure he'd be able to explain.
Oh,
I should hope he would. The thing is damned annoying.
Ha!
Huxley.
Even if you don't appreciate it.
I don't know what it is.
Listen,
You know
yet.
how do you find it
well
to
what
speak
it
in
is.
the talk?
You haven't.
Well, now I
told
shouldn't
us.
say it was
Good
good.
here,
I thought-
aren't you?
Yes.
It's much too
Well,
big
that
for the
is
speaking
exactly-
voice.
You have to project your tones, do you not?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm afraid they're not hearing Paula at all.
Well, I'm having to use my upper register almost entirely.
But you are very fortunate to be able to do that.
Well, now, were you able to hear me all right from back here?
Yes, you were just splendid. You know, I just said to Mrs. Bell, it's too bad we don't have a second act so that you could sing in between.
Oh, that'd be
you were
lovely.
splendid.
Can we write?
Oh, Mr. Spencer, where is Teddy?
He's gone over to the drugstore.
Put his makeup on.
He said he wanted to get some spirits of ammonia.
Mr. Spindler, don't you have a cue coming on here?
Where are they?
Telephone Mr. Spindler.
It won't ring!
What's the matter?
There's something the matter with it.
Oh, just forget it. It's too late now. You've missed every cue so far. You might as well be consistent the rest of the evening.
Good night. I can't help it if the thing won't ring, can I?
If you could check it out beforehand, it would work.
My gosh, I can't be in half a dozen places at the same time, can I?
Well, nobody is asking you to be in a half a dozen places at the same time. You are merely to attend to the cues. And so far, you've missed every one.
You told me to take care of Teddy, didn't you?
I told you to take Teddy to the door, not all the way to the drugstore.
Did you want me to let the man wander off somewhere by himself and maybe die just for the sake of not missing a cue?
It's very unlikely that he would die, and if he did, your duty is right here. Mrs. Spindler, a performance is never interrupted. happens to die.
What did I
Now, if
tell
you are a
you?
professional, you
They're making
know
more
that.
noise
You
out
are
here
not.
than they are out there.
And see.
Mr. Spindler, when I turn that off,
Can't shut it off!
take it outside when you get here.
Please.
Do it. What is the matter with this Spindler man anyway?
I don't know what is the matter with him. I have given up wondering about him.
Well, he acts to me like a man who would be in his right mind.
He's simply not a professional.
What about the gentleman?
Jealous husbands chiefly, aren't they? Didn't you want to leave a message for the doctor? Mr. Rush,
Who, me?
if you wish.
Well, he might leave an apology.
Mr. Twiller, get out of the
We have to
doorway.
about his mistake.
Have you convinced yourself?
Mr. Twiller, get out of the
Yes.
doorway. You're blocking
Well,
Paula.
he'll apologize to me whether we can
One
convince
of you
him or
move
not.
further. Mr. Twiller, will you please
Yes, you might say that my husband called for my bill.
Good evening, Mrs. Arlington.
Great job, old man.
Thank you, thank you.
Splendid crop, but what happened to your mustache?
Oh, can you beat that, Nellie? I couldn't coax that thing off before I went on.
I don't think the audience
Oh,
noticed
I don't
it.
think
If you will, please.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Don't mention it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Ha, ha, ha. Oh, I forgot my umbrella.
Oh, where is it? Marvelous,
Oh, I
darling.
left it on the
Oh, it
stage.
doesn't matter.
Oh, Betty, I think I saw Clara Shepherd out there.
Oh, not really.
Oh, yes.
Come out now,
All right,
Clara.
How did you and Paul happen to get wedged in the door?
Well, I got a little mixed up on my business cues, and I
What are you
Well,
doing?
I looked awful. I just stood there. I just didn't know what to do.
About this business at the door.
Explanation
Of course,
of
it
this.
doesn't really matter.
You don't think the audience noticed it, did you, Betty?
Wait a minute. Is somebody out?
You've all been listening to
You've all been listening to a lot of damn cheap
Somebody
gossip.
out, Mr. Paul?
the damn cheap gossip line.
Well, is he all right now?
He's all right now, but it's funny how that line has sent him up at every performance.
But it's just purely mental.
No!
Oh, my.
What's wrong?
No. What are they doing out there?
Is he up in his lines?
I don't know.
No, it's not us, it's us.
Paula?
Oh,
Paula, dear. Oh, do you think perhaps you ought to check on your husband?
Yes, I think I'll go upstairs and call him. I am rather worried about him.
Oh, Fred,
Oh,
and
excuse
find
me.
out if he's still unconscious, dear.
Oh, all right.
And be sure to hurry back for the curtain.
Oh, yes, I will. I'll be right down as soon as I
There are a lot of
telephone.
flowers coming over.
All right, I'll be right down.
Bye.
And you've allowed him to think so.
Yes.
What happened?
no, he knocked the ashtray over.
You are deliberately misinterpreting this situation. Yes, you are. Why, it's perfectly ridiculous that a physician cannot take on a woman patient without being subjected to the whisperings of a lot of vulgar scandalmongers.
This is not a romantic age,
How
Clara.
was that inflection of mine tonight on that line? I'm puzzled.
Oh, I was listening for it.
And that business down by the fireplace that you gave me the other evening, you know, it worked much better.
Oh, much better.
Did you notice it?
Oh, well, no, I wasn't out there. I was back here, but I sensed it. I felt from the tone of the scene that it was much better.
Well, I just turned my head like this,
Excellent.
without moving my body.
Very good.
Instead of doing the full turnaround that I
Oh,
have
a
to do.
much better chance.
Yes. That there is so much light and shade in that part, right in there. It's,
My dear, it is all light and shade, even the gesture.
oh, I have to work a lot on my gestures. They're bad, I know.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that they were bad, but I do think...
Well, I think I tried too hard to be natural.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think your gestures are too natural. And now that's a very virtuous fault, but it isn't pretty, is it?
No, it isn't.
And after all, the function of art is to be pretty, is it not?
I don't seem to be able to do that the way you do.
Well, my dear, it all comes from experience. When you've been in the work as long as I have, you will realize that the bird's wing gesture is the only gesture.
But it has its compensations. You'll have your
Well,
Hey, what?
They're carrying a man out of the audience.
Oh, no.
Betty, there's Clara Shepherd.
Oh, Clara, I'm so glad to see you. ball tonight and you look wonderful.
Oh, I just look perfectly dreadful.
You look nothing of the kind. You look perfectly beautiful.
Oh, all I've done is cry.
Oh, I know exactly how you feel.
Oh, but I didn't here. But I just felt that I had to come here tonight.
Were you out front, Clara?
I just had to see it. Oh, I don't think anybody saw me. I came in late and I stood way at the back.
But they wouldn't see you there, dear.
I don't think so. I kept my veil lowered. Oh, of course, I should love to have been down in front where I could get all those wonderful little subtleties. Oh, but you know how it is. I was afraid people might not understand my being here at all. It's only 3 weeks, you know.
And they wouldn't either, dear.
Oh, that's what I thought.
You know, I don't think there is 1 out of 10,000 people who has the artistic instinct enough to appreciate how you feel.
And those flowers in the lobby, oh, they're perfectly beautiful.
Yes, but we're not going to pass them over the footlights.
Oh?
No, just a bouquet for each of the ladies. It took too much time the last time.
Where's Paula?
Well, she went upstairs to make a phone call. She's very annoyed about Fred.
What about him?
Oh, my dear, did you hear how he fell down the stairs last night?
Oh, no, not really.
Well, he fell down nearly the entire flight.
Oh, dear.
Well, Paula is very upset.
Well, what was he doing, Betty? Coming down the stairs?
No, he was watching the rehearsal. You see, we had the rehearsal at Paula's house last night because we couldn't get in this place.
Well, did he break any bones, Betty?
You know, Dr. Wentworth said he was unconscious before he hit the floor. He just was sort of paralyzed, and he said it would have happened anywhere. Unfortunately, he was on the stairs.
Well, I thought he looked pale when I saw him out there tonight.
You saw him out there, you mean?
Oh, yes, Betty. He was standing there at the back, right near me.
But you must be mistaken, Clara.
Oh, no, Betty. I am sure that I saw him.
But all I know is Paula said he was still unconscious when she left home. Oh, there's Paula now.
Poor dear, she must be terribly upset.
Clara, dear, how sweet of you.
Isn't she the sweetest thing? Paula, dear.
Yes,
Lara
I know
just
it
said she
has.
saw Mr. Ritter out there.
I just came in a few minutes
Well, I just
ago.
telephoned Jenny and she said that he regained consciousness about a half an hour after I
Yes,
left the house.
Yes, I
And she
did.
thought from the way he was talking he was coming here.
I'm sure that I saw him out there. I was just...
Oh, I wonder if he's still out there.
Oh, my dear, I don't know.
How much of the play did you see, Clara?
Well, I stayed as long as I could. But when I heard those lines of mine again, oh, I just couldn't stand it.
You know, dear, you are such an artist.
Oh, everything just seemed to come back on me.
I know how that is.
Oh, I got to thinking how Jimmy would feel if he could know that he was the cause of standing in the way of my first real opportunity.
But perhaps he does know, dear.
Well, I mean, oh, you know he was always so anxious for me to get into the work. And somehow or other, I always felt that I could have put so much into that part. Oh, my dear, you were perfectly wonderful, and I don't mean it.
Excuse me, Clara, please.
Oh, certainly, dear.
By the way, there was a Mr. Robinson telephoned this morning after you left the house. He said something about a list being correct.
Yes, I know.
Lights!
Lights out. Lights out. Lights out.
Lights!
Where are you?
I was right here.
Well, why don't you work where you're supposed to be? Now, would you please get ready for the
Yes, I know.
It's the same old story. You want something done
Marvelous job, darling.
This is nice, family. What? Hang up the curtain.
Right.
Mr. Ozzycross. Oh, Ozzycross. Mr. Ozzycross. So
He's up, pick it up.
Where's Mr. Quiller?
Oh, here I am. Here I am.
Pick up the curtain. What do you think they call it?
Yeah, Paula.
Oh, here, your
Paula.
curtain.
Keep it quiet now.
Careful.
Carrie, darling, how do you feel?
Only fair.
Fine, will you take that Millie in, please? Keep the curtain up, mister.
Curtain.
Come on.
Yes.
Now just keep the curtain up and down until I tell you to stop.
I should go.
The next time, keep it up until the gentleman gets
You know,
close.
something like that,
Right?
I cannot believe.
Now, what are you waiting for? Go on.
Hold this.
Hurry. Oh, Sarah, dear, would you like to take a bow?
Pick it up.
I don't think so. Get those flowers, boys. Keep that curtain up.
Curtain.
Now, are you sure that you don't want to take a bow?
Well, do you think they'd understand this?
Of course, dear. They know it's not your fault that you're not appearing.
Oh, Betty, they're calling for you.
Fine. Will you take Clara out?
Oh, but Betty, they want you there.
I'll go out alone later. Now take Clara. Come on, Clara.
Oh, I really don't feel that I
Come
should
here.
Mrs. Campbell.
Everybody stand to one side.
Take up the curtain. I can't take it up. The guy rope's broken.
What is the matter with the curtain?
He says the guy rope's broken.
What is the God? Did you ever hear such stupidity? Get guys again. You're stuck.
You can't get through there, lady. That tormentor's too narrow
What's the
there.
matter with you?
He said he can't get the curtain up.
Other side.
I don't know how you're gonna do it.
Well, what is it Betty says is broken, Betty?
The curtain.
Well, why doesn't he fix it? Betty, dear.
What's the matter? Can
Dear.
Mrs. Campanelli get her bow?
She can't get through from that side any more than she can from this. There's the same opening over there as there is here.
My God, what's the matter with your curtain?
The guy rope's broken. I've told you about a dozen times. What do you want me to do? Write you a letter?
I think there's something the matter with the curtain.
Yes!
Oh, Mr. Ritter, I didn't hear you come in. Is the show over?
It's all over town by this time.
Mrs. Ritter phoned just a few minutes ago.
Is she alive?
Alive?
Because if she is, she's leading a charmed life. The Seamen's Institute. Oh, God help them on a night like this.
She was anxious to know if you were still unconscious.
If she phones again, tell her yes.
Ain't you feeling well again, Mr.
No, I'm not. It's not even my hat.
Well, I sure am sorry, sir.
On the bottle again, John?
Oh, just a little nip.
Oh, I don't think after that show tonight I'll ever feel exactly well again.
Was it a sad play?
Saddest thing I ever saw.
You know, I always cry when a play is sad.
Is that so?
And the funniest thing about me is the sadder it is, the more I cry.
You'd have had a big night tonight.
Did they clap much when Mrs. Ritter was finished?
I didn't stay for the finish. They carried me out.
I'm just dying till she gets home because I know exactly how she felt.
Have you been on the stage too, Jenny?
Well, not lately, Mr. Ritter. When I was home in England, I used to go on every once in a while, just for a bit of a change, you know.
Yeah, I know.
The town I lived in had a little club, and they used to do shows a couple of times a year, and I always took off the comical parts.
Yeah, how is it they didn't get you in this show tonight?
Oh, well, I haven't done it for a long time. My husband put a stop to it.
What happened?
He died.
I see.
I never felt much like cutting up after that.
Oh, see who that is, Jenny.
Yes.
Anybody for me, I've gone into permanent retirement.
Hello, Mr. Ritter. Oh, Mrs. Ritter.
Who is it, the police?
No, she hasn't come home yet. Oh, well, all right, Mrs. Livingston. I'll give her the message just as soon as she comes home. You're very welcome, I'm sure. Goodbye.
Mrs. Livingston?
Yes, yes.
What did she want?
She wanted to compliment Mrs. Ritter on her perfect performance tonight.
Did she see the show?
She didn't say.
She didn't see it. If any of those women come back here with my wife, tell them I'm not home yet.
Yes, sir.
And you haven't seen anything of me.
All right, sir.
But if my wife comes home first, I want to see her right away.
Yes, sir. That's
But you haven't seen anything of me, understand?
Yes, sir.
Let's see who that is.
Yes. Hello. Oh, Mrs. Ritter. No, she hasn't come home yet. Mr. Ritter.
It's the police. I'll bet a $10 bill.
Either.
Tell them I knew nothing about her going on. I didn't find out about it till last night, and I've been unconscious ever since.
The Times.
Oh God, the newspapers have got hold of
No,
it.
it's the Times, and they want to know Mrs. Ritter
Tell
has
her.
a full-length photograph of herself for the morning's paper.
Tell them no, but she'll have one taken as soon as she gets out of jail.
Well, I don't know whether she has a photograph of herself or not, but I'll give her the message just as soon as she comes home. Oh, you're very welcome. Goodbye.
Hurry up, Theodore. Theodore, now be careful of those tulips. Now, hurry, Theodore. Now, go on back and fetch the rest of the flowers. Oh, Jenny, you are up, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am, I'm up.
Well, I hope I didn't rouse you.
Oh, no.
Jenny, well, would you please go out and get the rest of the flowers?
Certainly.
I had Theodore put them in the hallway, and I just walked right in because the door was unlocked and I was afraid you were asleep.
No, I waited up for you.
Well, that's very angelic of you, my dear. May I help you? There are just so many, aren't they lovely?
They are beautiful.
Oh, yes, where should we put them? Right over here. I suppose really we can put them most anywhere.
Any place.
Till Mrs. Ritter gets here. Oh, dear.
Lovely flowers. Oh.
And aren't they lovely? Where should we put these?
Okay, put that on the table.
All right.
Thanks.
Jen. Honey, I want you to put that right here. I want Mrs. Ritter to see it when she first comes in.
Like that.
Yes, that's perfect.
I think there's one. What?
Yeah, now let's put that right over there. Oh, Jenny, just look. Hope and success. Hope for success. That is a quotation of one of your countrymen, Jenny, and very, very appropriate in light of Mrs. Ritter's performance tonight. I think I'll put these orchids right here. Yes. Oh, my dear, I am so warm.
Yes, it is warm.
Well, then I hurried home so foolishly.
Did everything go all right?
Oh, my dear, it was magnificent. And Mrs. Ritter was absolutely superb.
Did she get all these flowers?
Oh, this isn't half of them. We sent 3 automobiles full to the various hospitals, and Mrs. Fell was still putting them in when I left. This is just a little surprise for Mrs. Ritter.
Oh, well, they're certainly handsome.
And she doesn't even know that I brought them.
Is she coming right home?
Well, I expect her, yes. In fact, I thought she might get here ahead of me. You see, she was waiting for Mr. Ritter. When she found out that he was at the hall, she thought she would wait for him and he would bring her home. He hasn't come home yet, has he?
No, he hasn't come home yet.
Oh, his wife's success has probably gone to his head.
He went out of here about 8 o'clock.
I know we were so surprised to see him at the hall, because Mrs. Ritter said he hadn't regained consciousness when she left.
And he hadn't either. Well, I thought I had 2 heads on me when I came in here and saw him putting on his hat and coat.
But did he seem all right?
Well, he seemed all right, but he was awful pale. And a couple of times I asked him questions, and he gave me awful funny answers, so I got frightened. And I said to him, Mr. Ritter, do you know where you're going? He said, yes, I am going to see the torchbearers. Kind of flighty, you know.
Well, he would be naturally.
And then when he got to the door, he turned around and he said to me, Jenny, if you never see me again, I want you to know that I died in the cause of art. And then walked out.
He was probably just rambling a bit.
But he was walking straight enough.
Oh, Jenny.
I think that's Mrs. Ritter.
Is he coming?
Yes. Is Mrs. Fell coming back here tonight?
Oh, yes, she's bringing more flowers. I sent my car back for her.
But the other people aren't coming back, are they?
No, they've gone on to the Siemens Institute. They're giving a big party for the whole cast tonight. Now, Mrs. Fell and I will have to go there, of course, when we leave here. Oh, but we just didn't want to neglect Mrs. Ritter completely.
She is coming out.
Is Mr. Ritter with her?
I don't know.
Oh, don't go out. Don't go out. Jenny, I want to see what they say when they see all these flowers. Now, I thought that you and I could just hide out here somewhere. Yes. Now, remember, Jenny, don't come out until you hear me say, surprise, surprise.
All right, I will.
And now remember, Jenny.
Oh, Mrs. Pampanelli, could I say surprise when I come out too?
What would you like to?
Yes, I would.
Oh, fine. Well, just call out, surprise, surprise, and come rushing out.
All right, all right.
Are you up? Jenny? Jenny? Fred Ritter, you don't mean to tell me you've been home here, and there I've been in the hall since before 10 o'clock. Why didn't you come back for me? Irene Coulter had to bring me home. Clara Shepherd told me she saw you there, so naturally, of course, I waited for you. And when you didn't come back right away, I thought something had happened.
Something has happened to me.
What's happened to you, Fred?
I've seen you act.
What? Oh, Fred, are you having another one of those spells again like you had last night?
Yes, I am, only much, much worse.
Oh, isn't it dreadful? What do you think it is, dear?
I don't know what it is. It looks like a waste to me. Who's dead?
Dead?
What are all these flowers doing here?
Well, I suppose some of the ladies from the show have been here to fix up a little surprise for me.
They should have lighted a few candles and completed the effect.
But these are just presents, Fred, from friends of ours.
They're tokens of sympathy, that's what they are.
But there's nobody dead, dear.
Oh, yes, there is. Oh, yes.
Not really.
You're dead. You died tonight up there on that stage at Horticultural Hall, and so did everybody else that was up there with you.
But how could I be dead, dear, when I'm here talking to you? Oh, Fred, it's really terrible to see you this way.
The human mind can only stand so much.
You've just been working yourself too hard, but nobody can tell you anything.
What are you going to do?
Well, I'm going to call Dr. Wentworth, of
I
course.
won't see any doctor now.
Oh, listen, Fred.
I won't see any doctor now. There's nothing he could do for me. It's already been done. There's nothing left for me but to leave town.
Well, just let him come and see you, dear.
What would I let him come and see me for? There is nothing wrong with me.
Why, you're as pale as a ghost.
That's nothing. I had a shock.
What shocked you, dear?
I was afraid every minute that somebody was going to shoot you.
But why would anybody want to shoot me, darling?
For trying to act. Making fools of yourselves in front of the entire community.
Didn't you like me, Fred?
I did until I saw you act.
Why, Mrs. Pampanelli says I'm a great artist.
Mrs. Pampanelli is perhaps the world's greatest nut.
Well, she says I ought to go on with the work.
She meant the housework.
No, she didn't. She thinks I ought to go on to New York.
And what would you do when you get there?
Why, I go on the stage, of course.
How?
Why, I go to the people that were in charge of everything.
And do you suppose that they would put you on the stage simply because you wanted to go on it?
Well, I'd get Mrs. Pampanelli to write me a letter.
A lot of good that would do you. there'd be 1,000 there ahead of you, all with letters from Mrs. Pampanelli's. Nobody in New York knows Mrs. Pampanelli, and if they did, it would probably kill any chance they might have otherwise. Another actress. What did you do? Come down the chimney?
I was hiding in there.
I don't blame you after that show tonight. I've been hiding myself.
Oh, Miss Pampanelli, you didn't hear what Fred's been saying.
Every word.
Now, Fred Ritter, you see what you've done.
And I wouldn't have missed it. I will know how to regard this gentleman in the future. I hurried home with these few blooms as a little acknowledgement of the appreciation that your work deserves. And all I hear is abuse and a crude and a very venomous attempt at satire. Paula, dear, control yourself. I wouldn't please him.
She's acting again.
You barbarian. Paula, dear, control yourself.
I just can't help it, Mrs. Pampanelli.
Do you see what an emotional state you've gotten this girl into?
She's an emotional actress.
You savage.
No.
Can I get something for you, dear?
Get Jenny for me.
Certainly. Jenny! Jenny, come here. Mrs. Ritter wants you, Jenny.
Why did you take your makeup off?
I forgot about it. I was so worried about you.
You look like a Dutch squaw.
Leave her alone.
She's all made up and it's coming off.
Well, what difference does it make if it is?
I don't want to be reminded of that show.
Get Jenny for me, Betty, will you please?
Certainly, immediately. Jenny, Mrs. Ritter wants you immediately. I thought she was out here.
Well, she's probably went up the stairs to her room.
No, I just talked to her. She said she was going to wait right here for you.
Well, call up the stairs, Betty.
Oh, certainly. Jenny, Mrs. Ritter wants you right now. Surprise, Jenny! Surprise! 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 Yes, Mr. Ritter has prepared a delightful surprise.
Surprise, Mrs. Ritter.
Give me my smelling salts, will you? Jenny, please.
You see, Mrs. Ritter isn't feeling well. She'd like you to get her smelling salts.
Yes, ma'am.
They're in my bureau basket.
They're in her bureau basket.
I know where they are.
Poor darling. Get some of these flowers out of the way. You know, you have been treated abominably. His attitude is entirely consistent with that of every average husband whose wife has distinguished herself. And in spite of observations to the contrary, you did distinguish yourself, my dear.
So did the Cherry Sisters.
Would you get me
I'm not speaking to you at all, sir.
Would you get me a glass of water, Betty,
Why,
please?
certainly. Where is it?
Well, it's inside the breakfast room.
Oh.
Fred Ritter, you've been acting to me tonight like a man that'd be losing his mind. That's what I thought was the matter with you when I first got here.
Listen, if I didn't go crazy watching that show tonight, I couldn't go nutty if I tried.
Well, if anybody else comes here, you just keep that kind of talk to yourself, because there was other people that thought it was wonderful. Why, look at all these flowers.
These flowers were bought and paid for long before anybody saw that show.
Well, that's just your opinion. And this is very likely Nellie fell, so you just keep that talk to yourself. Remember, she likes you. Thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
No, Theodore, I can manage. Oh, you can close that door if you will. Oh, I couldn't wait for you, Jenny. I'm much too excited. Well, here I am with my frankincense and myrrh. Oh, there you are, Frederick Ritter. Well, we thought something had happened to you. Polly, dear child, I have come to worship at your shrine.
You've been very sweet.
Not as sweet as you were on that stage tonight, dear. You are made. Absolutely made. Well, isn't she, Frederick? It's one of those overnight things that one reads about. Look at this wilderness of flowers.
Yes, aren't they beautiful?
Oh, not another word until I have kissed you. Oh, dear child, what can I say to you? See here, Frederick Ritter, why aren't you just pelting your walk with these flowers? Well, answer me. You see, Paula, he is so pleased he cannot talk. Oh, and if you were any other woman but his wife, Paula, he'd be sending you mashed notes. Oh, you can laugh all you like, Frederick Ritter. But you can't fool Nellie Fair. I've had 3 husbands. I know all their tricks. Now, Paula, you may be sure that man is pleased tonight, so proud of you. He never was before. When he gets you alone, oh, when he gets you alone, he's going to tell you that you are the loveliest thing that ever stepped on the stage. Oh, if he hasn't done so yet. Oh, have you? Have you, Frederick? Oh, now, fess up. Come on. I know the position is difficult. Oh, he is so pleased he cannot talk. Oh, Jenny, would you take these violets, put them in some water for me?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm afraid they'll be all withered. Well, where's Mrs. P?
Yes, Betty, I have them.
Well, Betty, you see, we got them all here.
Here, Paula, here, try that.
What's the matter? Is Paula sick?
The critic here has been giving us his impressions of the play.
What critic do you mean? This critic here? See here, Frederick Ritter, what have you been saying?
Well, they didn't even know their line.
What does it matter what he's been saying?
Oh, well,
I say, what does it matter what he's been saying?
well, it doesn't matter to me in the slightest. Why, there's nothing he could say if he told the truth.
Eleanor, my dear child, husbands are not always particular about telling the truth, especially where their wives' abilities are concerned. Why, if I had listened to the promptings of my soul instead of my husband when I was young, I should probably be a leading figure in American theater today. But I was a fool to think that he had my best interests at heart. When the fact of the matter was, he was merely jealous of my artistic promise. Why, when I played Hazel Kirk, I had all my friends in tears.
I'll bet.
Yet when I came home, he had the effrontery to tell me that I was so terrific that he was obliged to leave before the first act was over. So, if this gentleman is going to set himself up as your critic, remember my story, Paula. An actress without honor in her own home. Is my car out there, Nellie?
Well, yes, it is, dear. I told Matthew that he'd need to come back for me, that you would bring me home. Oh, Paula, Paula. Oh, now, don't do that. See here, Frederick, what was the matter with that performance?
I told you they didn't even know their line.
That is a falsehood. They went over every line right here last night, and they knew practically all of them.
Well, what good was that if they couldn't remember them on the stage?
I knew every one of my lines. Every one.
They did remember them on the stage, not one, Paula.
She and that other woman sat there blinking at the audience like a couple of sparrowhawks.
They did nothing of the kind.
Well, of course they did not.
How do you know you weren't out there?
Well, I could see them through the scenery, couldn't I? And they didn't look a thing like a bunch of sparrowhawks, as you say.
Well, since I have never seen a couple of sparrowhawks, I cannot appreciate your comparison.
Well, you'd have seen a couple tonight if you'd been with me.
Don't argue with him, Betty. He's only trying to show off.
Why didn't one of them say something?
Well, now, what could they say?
Well, anything, any commonplace. It would have been better than just sitting there blinking.
One cannot be commonplace in high comedy.
Is that what it was?
And what did you think it was?
You tell her, Nellie. I haven't got the heart.
Oh, thing.
I suppose you would have eclipsed Edwin Booth if you had been out there.
At least I would have known better than to sit there blinking at the audience.
I never blinked.
Well, what would you have had them do under the circumstances?
Well, they could have covered it up if they'd had any brains.
Covered up with what?
What, anything, impromptu conversation, anything.
And had the audience laugh at them?
They laughed anyway, didn't they?
But that was not their fault.
Whose fault was it then?
It was Mr. Spindler's fault.
Mr. Spindler.
Yes. Mr. Spindler was supposed to attend to the properties, but he did not attend to them. He was to have a pen and ink on the desk, and when Mrs. Rush went to the desk to write a note to Dr. Arlington, there was no pen and ink. So she simply had to wait there until Mr. Spearing went out and got one.
I thought he'd left town.
Oh, he was not gone so very long, Frederick.
Not 5 minutes.
No.
I thought the show'd be over before he'd get back.
Well, when he tried to get in the door, it wouldn't open, so he was obliged to go to the other side.
And what happened to the skinny guy's mustache that it kept falling off every other line?
It only fell off twice. Don't exaggerate.
Oh, you bold thing.
How many times was it supposed to fall off?
Well, what difference does it make if it fell off a dozen times? Everybody knew it wasn't real.
No.
Well, it's a lucky thing for you, Fred Ritter, that you're not my husband.
That goes both ways, Nellie.
Well, if when you do something, then you get so many flowers that my limousine will have to make 3 trips to get them to the various hospitals, we may pay attention to what you have to say.
I assume most of the audience have gone with the flowers, haven't they?
Don't answer him, Eleanor. Envy loves a lofty mark. And if we ever had a part that calls for something of an interpretive genius, perhaps we will engage Mr. Ritter to do it.
Now,
Well, if you do, at least he will know how to walk across the room without tripping every other step.
who tripped every other step?
The weeping willow there.
Oh,
Well, she didn't fall, did she?
No, but it looked for a minute there as though she was going to. I almost had heart failure.
Don't pay any attention to him, Paula.
She tripped when she came on the stage. She tripped when she went off. And she tripped over the rug when she went over to the desk.
Well, she didn't trip any more than anyone else.
no, nor half as much as some of the others, now that you mention it, Betty.
Now, I must admit, Mr. Hossifras is a bit unsteady, but that is because he has weak ankles.
And what was the star's unsteadiness due to?
The rugs!
The what?
The rugs!
Yes, those funny little rugs they had down there. We didn't have them here for rehearsal, so naturally, when she got on stage, she wasn't accustomed to them.
She was accustomed to rugs at home, wasn't she?
But she was not at home on the stage.
That's my argument in a nutshell. You couldn't hear 2/3 of what she said.
But evidently, there were people who could. They laughed at all her points.
I wanted to laugh too, but I was afraid somebody'd turn around and see me.
Are you ready to go, Mary?
Yes, I am, dear.
Are you leaving, Daddy?
Yes, Paula, dear, it's getting late. I think we're going to have to leave now. Good night, dear.
Goodbye, Betty.
Good night, Paula,
Good
child.
night, Nellie.
Perhaps when we have our next production, Mr. Ritter will afford us the benefit of a few of his suggestions. I'm sure they would be very interesting.
That is an occasion I shall look forward to, Mrs. Pampanelli, with what is known as sardonic glee.
Of course, I can't guarantee that they will be accepted naturally.
Naturally. But I do have ones that I think might be accepted, and in fact put into practice right now.
Really?
And to the distinct advantage of everybody concerned. Although that I'd like to think that in making it, you will feel that I am actuated by only the most humanitarian of motives.
We'll decide about that after we've heard it.
Fair enough, Nellie. And I'll try to put it as briefly as possible. As you probably know, this house has a very fine attic, quite high up, and with not only an excellent bolt on the inside of the door, but an equally stout one on the outside.
so that persons on either side may secure themselves from disturbance by the others by the simple expedient of quietly sliding the bolt. I propose that you conduct all further performances of your work up there. It is spacious enough not to necessitate your having to hire an auditorium, and it has the added advantage, at least for those on the outside, of being absolutely soundproof. And I offer it to you free and clear, and with only one little restrictive stipulation, and that is that no word of any of the goings-on up there will ever reach the public ear. I feel that after tonight, they've suffered enough. And besides, I do not like to see anybody get shot. And I know that is exactly what is going to happen if there is ever a repetition of the kind of disturbance I witnessed this evening. Now, if you will excuse me.
Now, I have heard you say, Fred Ritter, that you were in favor of a little theater in this community.
So I am, and I say so again, but you'll pardon me if I say that I fail to see the connection.
Well, what did you expect to see, Mr. Ritter? A finished performance from a group of amateurs?
I expected to see something almost as bad as what I saw. That's why I fainted last night and was unconscious for 24 hours at the prospect of it. And that's the first time in my life I've ever fainted.
Oh, don't mind him, Betty. He's only trying to show off.
No, I would be very curious to know just how Mr. Ritter would expect to establish a little theater here unless through the medium of such performances as the one tonight. Now, how else would our local talent be discovered and developed?
Well, I'm equally curious as to our precise qualifications as the discoverers of such dramatic talent.
That is a very familiar attitude.
Maybe so.
You see, people who do things are constantly having their ability brought to the question.
Nevertheless, I'm still curious, and I'm further troubled by the thought of just who would develop such dramatic talent should it be discovered.
Well, perhaps you would come to the rescue, Mr. Ritter. You seem to be familiar with all the various necessities.
I am also familiar, Mrs. Pampanelli, with a little remark that Mr. Napoleon made on an occasion a long time ago about the immorality of assuming a position for which one is unqualified.
Where are you going, Fred?
I haven't the faintest idea, although I shouldn't be surprised that I go on the stage.
One star is enough in this family.
Applause and great laughter, followed by booing.
Paula, dear. Paula, have Jenny put these in water and then keep them in a cool place. They'll keep you ever so long.
Will you call Jenny for me, Nellie?
Yes, give them to me, Betty. I'll take them out to her.
Tell her to put them in a cool place.
Yes, of course.
Will you answer that for me, Nellie?
Oh, certainly.
If that has anything to do with the play, I'll be home next Tuesday at 2.
Yes, dear. Hello. Yes. Yes. Oh, it's the Star Motion Picture Company.
What do they want?
They want to know the name of Mrs. Ritter's manager.
Oh, dear, I anticipated that. Let me talk to them.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you?
Hello. Yes, this is Mrs. Ritter's manager, Mrs. Pampanelli. Pampanelli, Mrs. J. Duro, capital Pampanelli. Yes, that's right. I see. Oh, now, is that 1,000 a week or... Well, just a moment, please. The Star Motion Picture Company wants Paula to do a special performance of the play before the cameras.
What's the figure?
$1,000 a week.
1,500.
I'm sorry, but Mrs. Ritter cannot
Bargain
appear
at that.
for under $1,500 a week. At $1,250?
No compromise.
Maybe I should talk
No,
to
no, please, dear.
I'm very sorry, but Mrs. Ritter can positively not appear for under $1,500 a week.
Net.
Net. I see. Well, how do you mean satisfactory? Satisfactory at our figure?
Sign.
Assigned at $1,500 a week. Net.
Net.
And Mrs. Ritter will appear.
Our star. I have always said it. Well, haven't I always said it? Haven't I always said it, Betty? It's only a question of time. We must call Mrs. Livingston, dear. She's going to be so interested. Betty, we must call Mrs. Livingston.
It
right
was
away.
Ritter.
Ritter.
Fred? Recognize his voice.
Oh, where is he? Oh, I didn't hear him laughing. Paula, if you were my husband, I should lose no time in having him arrested.
Paula, you're sick. You know, Paula, I hope that you will not allow your husband's flippancies to discourage you. You see, the way of the essential artist is very hard. And quite frequently, the most serious obstacles are those encountered at home.
But I feel so unsuccessful.
I know how you feel, dear, but you must go on. Remember that art is the highest expression of truth, and you have everything in your favor.
Thank you.
And the masses need you. Why, you have a new note in the theater.
But I don't know whether Fred will want me to go on anymore, the way he spoke.
Are you telling me that you would allow your husband to stop you?
But he is my husband, Betty.
Well, very well. I suggest that you keep him. And I shan't waste any more time trying to encourage you. There are far too many out there who are willing to make the necessary sacrifice without being urged. But remember this, Paula. There will always be actresses long after husbands are a thing of the past.
Why, where's Mrs. B, Paula?
She went out to the car, Nellie.
Oh. Paula, do you mind if I take one of these blooms? I want it for my dramatic shrine.
You can have all of them.
What could you do, dear?
I don't want them.
Oh, now, Paula, you mustn't feel like that.
I just can't help it.
I see in your husband's attitude, Paula, nothing but a desperate attempt to save his home. For he must know what tonight's performance will inevitably lead to.
I don't understand what you mean, Nellie.
Oh, you must go to New York, darling. You can do nothing dramatically here.
Well, but I have a husband.
That's a cross that every married woman has, dear. But you mustn't let it stand in the way of your career. You can be sure he would eliminate you if you stood in the way of his.
But I don't like the thought of breaking up his home, Nellie.
Oh, don't be unnecessarily sacrificial, darling. I made that mistake with my first two husbands. But I was wiser with the third. And I said to him, immediately we returned from the church, I said, now, Linda, you and I have just been made one. And I am that one. And it's worked out beautifully. So be sensible, darling. Well, I must run off. Mrs. Pampanelli's waiting. Cheerio, Paula, darling.
Bye, Nellie.
Cheerio.
Bye. Fred Ritter, those women will never come back in here the way you spoke.
Well, I don't imagine that makes much difference, does it?
Well, it should make a difference.
Well, they wouldn't be coming here to see me anyway.
Well, they'd be coming here to see me.
But you won't be here.
Won't I be here, Fred?
Well, aren't you going on with the work?
Well, I don't want to unless you want me to.
Oh, but I do want you to. I don't think a talent like yours should remain hidden. It's too unique.
But a while ago, I thought you said you didn't like me.
No, you mustn't pay any attention to what I said a while ago, darling. I was panic-stricken at the thought of having my home broken up, but I've been upstairs thinking it over, and, well, I feel that it's more important that the world should see you act than that I should have a home to come to. After all, it's simply a choice between world service and my own individual comfort, and that shouldn't be too difficult a one to make.
But I don't like the thought of breaking up your home, Fred.
Oh, you mustn't consider me at all in the matter, darling. Every great talent has its victim, and somehow I'm rather happy at being chosen the victim of yours.
Well, but what would you do?
Oh, I've tried not to think about that. Of course, I suppose I could always go with you. I mean, you'd need somebody to look after the flowers, I suppose. See that they got to the various hospitals. Or perhaps I could just stay here and read about you.
I wonder if I'd like it after I got there.
Maybe not. At least not all of it. I suppose fame can be as monotonous as anything else, but I do think you should go just the same.
Why do you think I should go, Fred?
Well, because I think at some time in the future it might be very tragic if you looked back and felt that you hadn't fulfilled yourself.
But I never thought about becoming an actress, Fred. Well, not until Mrs. Pampanelli spoke about it.
Oh, well, that's because you were already a great actress, darling. You had no need to aspire to it, although you possibly didn't fully realize it yourself. But look at this anchor of hope and this horseshoe of success. People don't win tributes such as these until they've earned them. You know that as well as I do. And you know, I think it might be a very wise move, Paula, if you were to simply let the audience remember you as a great actress. To fade away, as the poet says, in the heyday of your glow, and let them remember you as they saw you tonight at your best.
Do you think they would remember me, Fred?
I don't think there's the slightest doubt of it.
Even if they never, ever saw me again?
Even if they never heard the mention of your name, Paula, I'm sure they'd remember you as long as ever they live.
You're awfully sweet, Fred.